Morning.
Morning.
Well, brings me great sorrow to think this is the last one of the offseason.
You just talk about what you accomplished this week in minicamp and why it was reduced.
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest thing is, you have a starting line and a finish line. I just felt like we crossed the finish line, particularly with the veterans. And really today's focus was just really spending final time with the rookies. They had their opportunity still to get the final lift in for this week, and just from that, just spend a bunch of individual time with the coordinators and the assistant coaches, and really, frankly, focus on the 5-week plan. That's what's in front of them. So everything we wanted to accomplish in the off season was completed, and really the focus turns to their individual 5-week plan. Basically to hit the championship conditioning. You need to answer that, Michael? Was that you, Clarence? Oh, okay. We can hold it. We can hold this thing up. I mean, sounds important, Mickey. Don't you think? Yeah. Oh, damn. I can step out. But 5 weeks and what's in front of them, and frankly, just not only get ready physically but emotionally and fill up their tank for what's in front of them, and mentally keep their eyes on their iPad.
So the veterans were let go yesterday, and just rookies here today.
I'm sorry.
The veterans here today, as well as just rookies.
No, there's veterans that have been in here, catching a lift, but no, the veterans were excused after the group dynamic event yesterday.
How was yesterday's event? And
Hit the ball well, actually. I felt good. Felt good out there. 4-iron was working. I recommended it at Top Golf. Just hit it straight and get some points was the plan. Curious to see how it shakes out, but no, it's fun. We had a blast. I really haven't spent much time there, but I know the players really enjoyed it, and just the way we coordinated everything and the interaction. And we had the officials join us. I don't think we're getting any calls, but it was a good day. It's clearly one of the better ones I've been a part of.
You talked a lot about you wanted to practice outside a lot, but you had some weather early in camp, off season, and the heat. Did you get outside enough? Do you like it?
That's a great question. I think you can never get outside enough. Wind was really a challenge this year, more than the heat. I mean, the heat's never really, hopefully it doesn't keep us from going outside. I just think, particularly, with our setup, when you get up 18, 19, 20 mile an hour winds, it's a bit counterproductive. But yeah, I think, going to Oxnard is, I think we're very fortunate to have that as a training camp area. Love the weather out there. I think, as far as your ability to challenge and stress your team out, what you need to get done in training camp, obviously our time limits are in place, as far as the CBA rules, but Oxnard gives you that opportunity. I think going up to Denver and spending an extra couple of days up there practicing in the mile high climate will be another nice factor, and then the competitive work down there in Irvine will be another opportunity. So I feel good about our plan, and looking forward to that.
What's your message to the team when they have this time off between now and the start of training camp?
Well, we break it down. I mean, from the first day of the off-season program, we have a timeline and what we want to get done in the off-season program, and this next segment is five weeks of their individual plans. So I mean, there's most guys are staying here. I mean, we're very fortunate to have an incredible training facility and the love of the city of Dallas. So just more people will be here in town than I think I can recall in my time in this league over the last 3 decades. So and that's a great that's a great way to go. So they won't be too far away, and I think today with the coaches having the extra time to spend with the rookies in their one-on-one, we feel really good about every guy's individual plan.
How important, based on your experience in Green Bay, when you have players come over to your house and have like Olympics, are these group dynamic events, and how much do you feel like that was missed during the pandemic?
Oh, I think normality is very important in developing relationships and genuineness of understanding and appreciating each other. So I think it goes a long way. When you look at culture, you look at relationship development, you see when you look at people that are particularly excellent at that in their profession, it's something that doesn't show up in a box score. And it's hard to put a numerical value on that. And it's something that I think you have to recognize through experience and continue to try to grow. I mean, group dynamics is something that we're, the growth through group dynamics to improve your culture is something every team is after, and it's clearly taking the time to develop it. You want it to be as organic as possible. So I think you're going to watch. I think you got to watch. Try not to be too organized, too structured, because at the end of the day, it's about the interaction of the individuals. That's the way I've always viewed it, and so I think it goes a long way. And just thankful that we have the resources to go out and spend some money and have a great time doing it, and laugh a lot, and you always learn more about the next guy than you knew going into those opportunities.
Mike, how much do you have to emphasize with these guys? Here's this 5 weeks of unstructured time, and maybe it goes without saying, or maybe it needs to be understood. Be careful during this period.
Oh yeah, travel safe, be smart, be safe. I think like anything, it's part of our plan to get ready. I mean, there's what we've accomplished in the off season. We need to move forward. We can't go backwards, and I think they clearly understand that. That's been the messaging throughout. I mean, this isn't something we just didn't just talk about yesterday or today. This is something we've been preparing for. I know the coordinators and assistant coaches have been a lot of one-on-ones, a lot of extra time, particularly with the younger guys in the afternoon. I think you got to really commend today's athlete, particularly obviously I'm talking about the NFL players. There's a lot of interaction that goes on. Whether it's Dak with the receivers at his house and the perimeter groups. Guys will still be working out here all the time. So I do think there's structure to it, but it's obviously not all of us here together. And I think really this time is really beneficial because I think we all could use a little bit of a break from one another. I think it gives you a chance to get around your family, your friends, to get personally charged emotionally and mentally. And at the end of the day, we all have to do the physical work that needs to be done to make sure we're ready to go in Oxnard.
A lot of guys use personal position coaches and different things. How much interaction do you have with those coaches or with the players to say, hey, we'd like you to do this, and make sure they're telling you, they're reiterating the same messages to those guys?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's an excellent outlook and perspective, and I think experience definitely teaches you to embrace it. And if anything, I think you have to watch of maybe too much. Too much. I think outsourcing is very important. Always encouraged it, and living in the city of Dallas, I mean the resources are. I'm just going back through my career. I think our resources are over the top here. So a guy really has a chance to get what he needs away from here. And I'm not just talking about these next 5 weeks. I'm talking about throughout. I think we've talked about this in the past when we get into the in season. The state program was initially developed because you wanted to make sure that the players had the resources to rest and recover and regenerate their bodies. But coming here, the veterans that were already here, that was in place, that they have tremendous program and networking already in place. So I think it's important to be in tune with with Dak's quarterback coach, with his throwing coach, and that's all part of it. Because at the end of the day, we all want the same goal. We're all after the same thing, and everything we do is about making every one of these players successful, both on and off the field.
Dak said he expects Zeke to have his best season in the NFL yet, now that he's healthy. I know it's early, but you see any changes in Zeke?
Well, I think the biggest thing with Zeke is he's completely healthy now, and he's had a tremendous offseason. I mean, the weight that he's been pushing in the weight room, just the numbers that he's been cranking out, have been very, very impressive. I can't stand to tell you it's been the best of his career, but he's in top shape, and at the end of the day, he's an extremely instinctive, tough, smart football player, great teammate. So I think he's definitely has set himself up for that.
Are the guys, when you go to Oxnard, are the guys that won't be ready to practice? Obviously Gallup won't be, but are Jabril Cox, James Washington, you expect these guys to be ready either at start or at some point in Oxnard?
At some point, even if it's in a limited fashion, I think I think we feel really good about the progress of all the players that have gone through rehab, and everything's been very encouraging.
You've had your rookies for 6 weeks at this point. How's your impression of those guys changed during this offseason program?
Probably not fair to the first draft class, and probably even the second draft class, just because of their introduction into the Dallas Cowboys, whether it's through a pandemic or certain protocols last year. But it's clearly, and it's just so hard to stand here in front of you and compliment somebody and not being taken like I'm trying to insult somebody else. So, see, I'm getting sensitive. I've been up here too long. But it's clearly the most mature group that we've had. I'm very, very, very impressed with the extra time that these young men are here. I mean, they're here throughout the afternoon, the extra meetings, the Zoom meetings. They're here on the weekends. So I have not been in here over the weekend and have not run into 5, 6, 7 rookies. On Sunday, there's 6 or 7 of them in here. So I think that's what you're looking for. I mean, it's just everybody talks about work ethic. Everybody talks about the ability to have a high workload capacity. But at the end of the day, I think you have to emphasize it, but you got to create the opportunity. And I think our rookie class has done a tremendous job of getting themselves ready for training camp. Because at the end of the day, that's what the off-season program is. It's about getting ready for a great training camp. And, with that, the 5-week plan is part of that.
Along those lines, what sort of impression has Sam Williams established thus far?
Sam's done some excellent things. Obviously had the injury, missed some times, but you can definitely see the pass rush ability. He's raw, which is to be expected, and I think that's a positive for where he is, and I think it clearly gets you excited about his upside. So yeah, everybody's been impressed with Sam.
With guys like that,
He's raw. He's fairly new to the position. You don't have to unteach him any bad habits. You kind of just start somewhat anew, start fresh.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think I've always looked at that. I mean, I think when a guy's closer to his floor than his ceiling, I've always looked at that as a positive.
Because you've had an off-season program and you haven't had the pandemic restrictions, is this the best you've felt about a team since you've been here going into training camp?
Oh, absolutely. It's the best I felt about the football team in the preparation. Focus clearly. I mean, it's not you really have to throw the first year out, but we're clearly ahead of where we were this time last year.
with guys like Sam Williams, edge rushers like that, and how little contact you guys are able to have in the offseason? Is it more difficult to bring along edge rushers nowadays because of that, or can they make up the gaps because of they work with individual coaches and things like that? I
think it clearly, this structure of the off-season program, you still have the ability to really work the pass rush. Yeah, so I don't feel like we're tremendously limited there. I think the biggest restriction for the pass rushing and the defensive lineman is not going against a padded offensive lineman. So, I mean, that'll be obviously the next step when we get to training camp. But, the ability to get the techniques, the alignments, and particularly the drill work, get that taught, get the speed of it taught, and that's all obviously. But you have to shut it down at the top of the rush. Just because of the restrictions you have in practice. So I felt, and I always have, I still feel like we did able to accomplish a lot, particularly Sam or the whole defensive front. So I feel good about what we were able to get done pass rush wise. But the padded work is for everybody is obviously at a premium in training camp.
Mike, you said a couple weeks ago that Kelvin Joseph was doing good work in the building. Last couple times we've had a chance to see it. He's suited up, but on the sideline, where is he at physically and otherwise?
I think he's going to be okay. It's a minor injury that he's working through. So I don't think, I think after the 5 weeks off that I anticipate he'll be full go in training camp.
Within the restrictions that you talk about with the practices and stuff, is the structure of camp going to be different in terms of they'll be working up towards those joint practices as well as the preseason games?
You talking about different from last year?
Yes.
I think it'll look same. I think it'll look the same to everybody here. You have the first 4 practices a ramp up. So, and I think the stress point there is we're going to go 4 in a row. So, we won't be on the field longer than an hour. There'll be a tremendous amount of walk-through, jog-throughs, and that we'll really focus on to get the really. We're going to take the first 2 installs, just make sure we really got it tuned up and ready to go. And then really, the install 3 and 4, which is the 5th and 6th practice, it's kind of, you still have some time restraints here in the padded work. So I think you're going to see it more of a climb this year because, this is the first year in the new CBA. So the practice time is less than it's been as far as even in the padded work because you really don't get into the full padded work that we're accustomed to. I call it a traditional install training camp practice, but you really don't get into that until the 7th practice. So you're going to see more of a progression like this as far as the time on the field in competitive drills. So that part is, but we'll be able to get the 8 installs done, right before we go to Denver. And then once we hit Denver, we're really into a kind of a preseason, mode of getting ready for Denver. And then the same thing is we'll clean up the Denver game on that Monday, and then Tuesday we're gonna, we'll have more of a jog through and then head down to Irvine.
Is 8 always the number of installs, or does that vary, or what dictates, the number of installs and how you spread that out over the course of?
Does it vary? The 8? I think really the way we're set up, it's, when I first got in the league, I think we had 15. 1993 is, we had 15 installs. I'm trying to. Then I think I went to 12. I know my first year as a head coach, I think I had 10, and probably around 2011 is when I went to 8, just because it had a fit. We're all, and frankly, I think as the longer you're in this league, I think you clearly get more control of your volume. I'm a big believer in less volume, more creativity. It's a coaching principle of mine that I've adhered to for a good 15, 20 years. So it makes you work harder to get it tight and efficient going into it. But I've been in the 8 install mode for probably a decade now, and it works. It definitely works in this new CBA environment.
Mike, on the note of what you were saying about players being closer to their floor than the ceiling, when you have a player like Jalen Tolbert who didn't start playing football until high school, how does that show up when they get to camp? And even if they've had a college career, what types of ways is that evident in the way they play the game?
I think it goes back to the floor ceiling conversation, but I think the other thing too is which you have to really pay attention to is instincts and awareness. Even for a young man that didn't play football that long, obviously he's a multi-sport athlete, and you can cross train and gain those types of experience and spacing interactions in other sports. So, and I think it all applies to whatever sport you go to at that level. So I feel very good about where he is, because he's very detail-minded, very focused young man, picks it up quickly. His learning is, I definitely put him in a higher level there too. So, but just like any rookie, he's got to cross that threshold of getting out in the competitive drills and really get going, particularly when we put the pads on, and that'll all occur in Oxnard.
How's he transitioned to the outlook of potentially being your primary punt returner this year?
We'll see. I mean, I think he's done a nice job with the limited reps he's had. Obviously, he missed some time with the hamstring, so, but he's, seems pretty natural back there.
When you look at these 5 weeks, where I'm sure you're looking forward to it and the time off, is there a time during that period where you're like, okay, let's go, it's time to get back to football, even before the...
I want to fight it this year, and that's a very insightful question by you, Todd. It's about time, by the way, but I'm just kidding. It's yeah, I hear you. But really kind of what happens to me, and your kids test you on this, but really, once I get past the 4th of July, it's about July 8th, 9th, 10th, and I think most coaches are like this. You start getting the itch, you get up, and just from my structure, vacation with my family, the mornings are my free time, because kids stay up a little later the older they get, and get their butt out of bed till 11 o'clock. So I get a good 6 hours of freedom before I get going. And that's when I really dive back into it. So it's kind of, it's fun. A lot of family time. Looking forward to it. Family from Pittsburgh's coming. So, but I think once you get past that 4th of July weekend, I know that's kind of been my trigger. So, I'll definitely spend those last 2 weeks getting ready.
Getting back to Joseph just for a second, any clarity on this situation with the Dallas PD? And
I have nothing. Yeah, I haven't been told anything for at least a month. So, yeah, I have nothing to report.
Is it safe to assume, since Dalton was here, that he'll be in California?
Great question, business question. I think we're all hopeful, and I think it'd be great for everybody.
How's Sean McEwen developed?
Doing well. I think Sean just his continued progression in the weight room and the conditioning part of it. He's had some injuries that he's had to overcome in the past, and I think he's done a really good job there. Getting his body ready for very resourceful, very versatile, both on special teams and obviously, at the tight end position. But I think he's had an excellent offseason.
You mentioned most guys are around here and they have this facility. How much, if at all, does that play into cutting minicamp a little bit short in terms of not taking all that time, knowing guys are around and that they're just kind of able to fill in the gaps a little bit, if you will.
I'll tell you, it's that, and I'll be honest with you, I think it's the virtual learning too. I mean, for me personally, I think you know, when you go through it in the pandemic, clearly learned a lot, you know, personally and, you know, as a coaching staff perspective of the workload, capacity, ability. So, I mean, there's a lot of work that gets done that's really not on a daily schedule. So I think that's, you know, that really plays into it. And the fact that the guys are here and they do interact with their coaches, you know, on a different level than my experience in the past, that's all part of it. So I can't tell you how proud I am of our young players. But just to compliment the coaching staff, and it's really, you know, what I echoed in the last staff meeting. I thought they knocked it out of the park. I thought they hit a home run as far as maximizing the time with our players. And, you know, the veterans, you know, we had excellent participation from phase one, really the captain's workouts, phase one, all the way through. So we were able to go through all the concepts with the vets, and then the vets also got all 8 installs. So, like I said, I think we clearly crossed the finish line of what we were trying to get done this year.
How do you approach when, you know, it's June, early June, and there's still some pre-snap penalties? Do you look at it like, well, it's part of the learning process, if we get some time to clean it up, or are you really militant about it? Like, how do you balance the big picture of the offseason with the point of emphasis?
I mean, just when you think you've seen it all in this league, something else happens. You know, the guardian caps show up. So, I mean, you know, like I was, you know, telling Jerry Bergman, I said, you got to put that flag in your pocket when you got, you know, there's the biggest damn helmets I've ever seen in my life. So so you had some of that. You know, I think it kind of, you know, I know it through our young guard and tackle off as far as their alignments and so forth. So you got to sort through that. But, you know, I thought it was great to have the officials. And really the biggest benefit that I've always felt that you have with officials at your practices is not as much having them on the field, but having them in your meetings. So the ability to, you know, talk about the technique that we're teaching, what they're looking for, because all those guys, the whole, you know, Bill Vinovich all the way through his whole crew, I thought they did a great job of communicating and interacting with our players, and just, you know, tell them what they see, you know, and I think like anything, you know, it's group dynamics is about building relationships and not the, you know, you're going to build a relationship that's going to benefit you with the referees as far as how they call, but it does help you talk to them about, hey, you know, because it's all about getting as close to the line as you can without getting the flag called. I mean, that's part of competing in sports. So the ability to have those conversations and understanding, I think it's really good for our younger players. Our veterans understand that. So just the interaction that they had there. So, yeah, definitely. I mean, to have that many flags thrown in practice, I mean, yeah, I ain't gonna lie to you, it crossed my mind about practicing today, but I didn't think that was necessary. But I think it was a really good experience. But, you know, wearing those guardian caps, it's the first time we had them on. I wanted to wear them, you know, in the mini camp, just more for the maintenance and the adjustment of it. But, you know, I really wasn't expecting, you know, encroachment and, you know, and illegal formations at the level that we had them. But I'm glad we got it on tape because we were able to coach it.
Mike, you said at the end of the year that job one was cleaning up penalties, discipline, maybe silly penalties. How much do these referees, their involvement, and maybe is there more refs involved with you during practices? How much is that part of that plan?
Yeah, I think we got a much better plan than we've had. I think, you know, well, obviously, you know, with Gary Slaughter, he's our local rep here. So just the fact that we can have him more involved, you know, without the protocols, I think that clearly will be an excellent addition for us. His involvement, you know, as far as the communication and training of the local, you know, referees that we do use at practice, I think we'll be better served there. You look at our training camp, you know, we'll probably have the NFL officials at our training camp two different times. We're normally have them once. We're going to be involved in practicing against the Broncos, so you'll have 2 sets of officials there on both fields, no different than down there in Irvine against the Chargers. So I think clearly our exposure to NFL officials, the interaction of NFL officials throughout training camp is clearly the highest that I've ever experienced in my career. So I think there'll definitely be some benefits from that.
Why haven't them twice this year? Just because of the practices?
It was offered.
Okay.
Yeah, it was offered. Not that, you know, it just, I think they were here about 3 weeks ago. So we had our annual officiating meeting with the coaches. So that's something that came up in the meeting. So we've we've requested it. So I think, like I said, I think the interaction, I get more out of the conversations with the officials off to the side or in the meetings than anything else. So you get to talk about situations, you can talk about how we're teaching game management situations and how they view them and so forth. And, all the, we obviously talked about our last play against the 49ers, so you get a chance to go back and review the mechanics, and they've obviously had a chance to review their mechanics. So I just think it makes us all better.
The mechanics of that, based on practice when you guys were doing situational work, didn't look like they changed. Is that fair, or are there any tweaks to the mechanics in that situation where you guys are running and trying to get a play off?
Well, I think the thing is not. I don't think it's really as much as how much we got to change. We just got to be better at the execution, and I think the awareness on both sides of exactly what the umpire is trying to do, or when the the officials coming to spot the ball or bless the ball. I think ability to just continue, because really our training tapes haven't changed much. Because you only get so many reps where you have one at 13 seconds, you have one at 17 seconds. So the ability to go back through those and just enhance it. I think it's like anything. When you look at situational football, and game management's part of that. I mean, there's been years where, hey, I didn't feel like we were very good in the red zone, whether it was offense or defense. So what do? Do more red zone reps in practice and training camp. Well, then you got to give something up. So, but that's not the case in game management. There's a criteria and a quota from my perspective as far as how I plan it of how many times you need to do it. So I thought last year we did it clearly more than I ever have. But at the end of the day, we want to be better at the teaching and the training at it, and I think that ultimately makes our players better.
Just for clarification for the dummies like me.
Is that on camera? Yeah.
There's so much conjecture about you guys did it wrong. Getting the ball to the center instead of giving it to the referee. You're saying we didn't do it wrong, we're going to continue to do it the same way. Is that, I'm just trying to.
No. And so
because in practice.
Please don't make that a headline.
No, I'm just trying to figure out.
Because I'm not running Dak 20 times either.
No.
Okay, so I don't know where the hell that came from.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to, you're not changing the operation, how you handle those situations.
No, our focus is more on the specifics and the details and the execution. So, when you look at clock in the play, as far as we call it church clock, because we have a church family of situations that we rep. See, we have 4 playbooks. We have an offensive playbook, we have a defensive playbook, we have a special teams playbook, we have a game management playbook. So that's the way I've done it as a head coach. So when I first got in the league, the threshold was 17 seconds of when you attempt a clock to play. I think through training, emphasis over the years, most people now teach it at 16. But there is a situation at 13, 14, and 15, which we were in at 14. There's evidence clearly in our training tapes, Jacksonville, at Minnesota. So it's all there for you, and they run a draw play. But you have coaching emphasis and awareness as far as how much yards you can get. As far as me being able to communicate maybe with instead of the alternate ref, to the side judge. And so you go back and you review all the things. Hey, how can we all be better on this play? So I think obviously that's the accountability of it. But as far as what we were trying to get done, we were trying to get the ball moved up, another 10, 12 yards to put us in another play selection for the last play. So as far as the thought, design, because I don't want to open up this can of worms again because I'm going on vacation today, Clarence. And we will be better is our focus, okay?
Thank you.
That needs to be the headline. We will be better. That's our focus. Everybody have a great break, huh? Thank you.